Hello once again, and this is the last discussion we would be having in this segment of innovation, entrepreneurship, business development, and now which is culminating into a blue ocean strategy perspective. As we tend to discuss in the last segment, that how blue ocean framework can be visualized. Now we move towards blue ocean tools and strategy canvas, and I'll demonstrate in a short while that what does it implies. But before I go towards that, I would just like you to recall that there is an element of blue ocean which suggests that reach beyond existing demand and also go for the biggest catchment kind of, and that is where the context of blue ocean tends to take a particular kind of shape, wherein we as demonstrated earlier also, we think of non-customers, how non-customers can be brought into this sphere, as I referred to this golf example earlier as well. You may categorize this thing, the thought process associated with going for non-customers in different categories. That for example, Activa is an example that you are looking for people who were using other two-wheelers to attract them towards a segment of, a broad-based segment of as far as two-wheelers go. It's an innovative new kind of a product which includes several kinds of customers altogether. So you can say that there is an element of imbibed element of somewhat some form of competition there. But definitely it is an example of blue ocean wherein that tends to take your thought process towards associated customers, and those associated customers have a portion of non-users as well, who were not riding two-wheelers or using two-wheelers to an extent or for every sort of purpose, because they somehow were not finding the product apt for them, or they were trying to adjust with the products being offered till now. For example, elderly now ride Activa very comfortably. Women and kind of school students, they had different kind of choices associated with that, but now it has become a universal kind of a choice, more or less. So that is where categorization also evolves, and but largely when we think in terms of attracting non-customers, Activa is one of those examples. Then have you heard of Kuch Meetha Ho Jaye? So Cadbury, they sort of projected their chocolates with the perspective of not only chocolates or not only the users of, or let us say customers of chocolates, they projected chocolates with the perspective of if you have a craving for having some sweet, so alternative to sweet as such. So one may say that they were trying to compete with the sweet segment, but I would say no. They were trying to attract non-users or associated users at large with as far as Kuch Meetha Ho Jaye. And as I said, and in the last discussion also, there are places where there is a very thin line of understanding between these contexts, but definitely when you look at these with reference to the examples and the execution of those examples in practical life, you would realize that definitely the organization and products, they can be categorized under blue ocean framework as such. Then there are tooth whitening toothpastes which can be looked upon with this kind of a perspective. Amla juice, have you heard of? Earlier before Patanjali launched that, I did not hear of that at all. So that is one of those multiplexes when they came into being, that was again reaching beyond existing demand. Now today you go to multiplexes to watch movies and spend lots of money as compared to what one did in earlier stages of going to cinema halls. Now it has become an experience, and It has become a matter of enjoying a particular time period while watching the movie and eating food products, and spending some time in comfort with the families and so on. So it has gone way beyond as far as reaching beyond existing demands go. Stores like Spencer's and big stores like Big Bazaars, they have changed the way people used to shop, and it's not to be mentioned, although there is whole lot of virtual or online stores available, but still Big Bazaars and Spencer's and these kind of stores, sometimes especially on holidays and weekends, you don't find a place to, it's crowded. So there is another view endorsing the discussion wherein every single customer is focused upon through resources from all over, and that is where Prahalad and Krishnan, they have demonstrated creative innovation perspective. And it's also interesting to be noted here that kind of a whole lot of world is looked upon as a resource, and so many resources are utilized for satisfying an individualistic need of the customer through co-creation perspective. So that is also a view which supports and endorses reaching beyond existing demand. Now the as the discussion says, tools and strategy canvas. So when we think in terms of tools, with reference to Blue Ocean, the first important element which we have to learn is focus. Focus on the kind of offerings we are going to make. Focus on our customer. Focus on the requirements and the needs of the customer. Focus on the perspective of the customer. Focus on how customer has been compromising up till now as far as the satisfaction of particular kind of want goes. Focus on that what kind of non-users can be brought in as far as particular ambit of offerings go. Divergence. How divergent one can be as far as the existing offering set of offerings go. You are focusing on the customer's needs and your offerings, but then simultaneously you have to focus upon the divergence which is as compared to the existing offering state as such. So as we have fondly demonstrated about Apple or Amul or LIC or several other examples which have which have demonstrated focus and divergence simultaneously. Then there is a compelling tagline which definitely is required to not only generate a recall, generate pull, and to justifiably suggest what you are up to. And one of my favorites is Zindagi ke saath bhi, Zindagi ke baad bhi. Now that is a very assuring kind of a tagline, wherein you see the LIC has a product which is called Jeevan Anand, and the product entirely is related to this tagline, which is definitely the company's tagline as such. So you see, you pay a particular kind of a premium, and when the policy gets matured, you get the maturity amount, and once, for example, I have purchased that product, once I die, the maturity amount once again would be given to my daughter. So you get the maturity amount twice, Zindagi ke saath bhi, Zindagi ke baad bhi. Now that is an important kind of a product and a policy which is very popular nowadays as far as LIC's product offerings go. But LIC tends to suggest the customers that they stand by this line, that they not only assure a customer within his or her lifetime, but also it would stand by the people who the successors or the people who are associated with the buyer of their policies, while settling their accounts and giving them the money which they they deserve in terms of the products which they have purchased. So compelling tagline, that is very important, and there are many popular compelling taglines which have attracted lots of attention from the customers and non-users as well, kind of. So Pepsi has one of those taglines, and then Lifebuoy has one of those taglines, and then several other organizations. Amul has one of those taglines, and Bata, they have one of those taglines, and taglines like "Khushiyon ki chabi" is a very important tagline. And at the end of the day, but just to draw your attention on one very important point, that most of the taglines, they exemplify hope. And that is where we always say that integrated marketing communication works on the basis of two keywords, hope and fear. And most of the integrated marketing communication and taglines, they are related to hope. And hope is the keyword which propels the thought process of the customer, because as human beings, we tend to believe in a better world which may come, and which we always are looking for better times, kind of. So hope is a very important thing. There is a saying in Urdu that "Ummeed pe duniya qaim hai." So that is a wonderful kind of a thing when we say that hope propels things, actually. So that is where compelling taglines, the context to compelling taglines comes in. Now there is a framework or further categorization of tools which we utilize in Blue Ocean strategy, and that refers to eliminate, reduce, raise and create. I would demonstrate that in a short while from now, but just to reiterate some examples before demonstrating this, these tools which would be which constitute Blue Ocean strategy canvas, and I would try to demonstrate how we can go for forming Blue Ocean strategy canvases for, in case of several products and offerings, I would say offerings for precise execution of whatever we have been discussing up till now. And once you tend to practice developing these canvases or Blue Ocean canvas in terms of several offerings you may have in mind, you would definitely reach to a point wherein you would master the art of developing Blue Ocean thought process, and that is what is the culmination of everything which we have discussed up till now. So for example, Scorpio. Now this is a story which tells us that how Scorpio actually worked upon all the elements which we have seen up till now. So reconstructing the market boundaries, developing a product wherein non-users were attracted, systematic innovation perspective was associated with this product, value innovation perspective emerged along with this product, and lots of rationality came in when this product was thought of in due course of time, and it came and then it created a market for itself. So it created an uncontested market space for itself, wherein it diminished the line between a car and MUV and SUV and so on. So that is an important example which we talk of at this moment when we are culminating towards Blue Ocean, and we are about to form Blue Ocean strategy canvas. So Narayan Hridayalaya, as we have seen, we have discussed this. Patanjali, it's a very favorite example of today's contemporary times. And then Saas Bahu serials which emerged on television, and you see these soaps, these teleserials, they actually wrote a different kind of a history, and they also constitute all the elements which we have seen up till now with reference to Blue Ocean perspective. Then Tata Ace is a product which I definitely categorize in the similar category, and then Tata Magic is there, and Maruti definitely wrote a history when they came up with the cars. They offered the product offerings which they had, and today also they have offerings which are related to lots of Blue Ocean approach from their stable. Now look at this. This is a canvas which we are referring to. On the one side you have offering levels. You may choose to categorize that offering level according to any scale you desire, for 0 to 100 or 0 to 10 or whatsoever. This is the offering level, and offering constitutes of all the 4 P's. kind of. You see, if you look at those offerings in terms of marketing and elements of marketing, then definitely product, price, place, promotion constitute the offering level. So that is, and you can refer to any standard marketing text for understanding what what an offering is largely. But when we say offering, it is largely the combination of all the 4 P's which is related to a particular kind of a product. So offering level is on one side, and on the other side you have kind of offerings. So here is an example of this example I have borrowed from Kim and Rennie's book on Blue Ocean Strategy, and these slides are available on the web, and the sources would be revealed to you as well, and as far as the reference material goes. So this is an example of Cirque du Soleil, kind of a circus which existed, and then this circus recently closed down finally, but not because of they could not stand in the market, but definitely there might be different reasons. But at the time when this was looked upon by the authors, this circus is an elemental example of how Blue Ocean worked for this circle. For example, authors have chosen to talk about contemporary circus which were in competition with this circus, Ringling Brothers or smaller other circus, and they say that there is a price level, then you see there are star performers, there is a level of star performers, then there is a level of animal shows, then there is a level of aisle concessions, then there is a level of multiple show arenas, then there is a level of fun and humor, then there is a level of thrills and danger, and then there is a level of unique venue which is demonstrated by red lines and red spots. What this circus did was, this circus eliminated star performers, animal shows, aisle concessions and multiple show arenas. Now what is a circus if eliminating such kind of things is left with? Now that was the catch. They reduced fun and humor and thrill and danger. Now you see, that is where reconstructing the market boundaries come in. You tend to reduce and eliminate the things which actually constitute the meaning of a particular kind of an offering or a business in a larger context. But what they did was, they actually raised unique venue. They created a particular kind of a beautiful ambience associated with circus, and if you would have visited circus, you would have realized that the ambience is not so conducive. So they created a wonderful, beautiful ambience, and then they went for creating a theme around that show, refined viewing environment wherein you could go and enjoy and relax, and the show is going on, multiple productions and artistic music and dance associated with that particular kind of a circus. So you see, they attracted non-customers and they went into an uncontested market space. They differentiated with low cost while reducing all the costly elements existing within a circus, and that is how this example is demonstrated aptly in Blue Ocean Strategy, written and demonstrated by Kim and Rennie, and their website also demonstrate these kind of examples through wonderful slides, and one of those slides is in front of you right now. So that is where Blue Ocean execution within the framework of our elements of eliminate, reduce, raise and create comes in. Now slightly look at another example, Patanjali. Again, as I said, that we have to sort of develop strategy canvas in terms of the offerings which we have understood, or we feel that they come under Blue Ocean Strategy framework, or we feel that they can come under Blue Ocean Strategy framework if they go with a particular kind of methodology which we have discussed in earlier discussions. So Patanjali, for example, now when you go for conventional consumer products which Patanjali is now into. So, again with red dotted line you can see that they have a particular offering level in terms of price, and then they have a usage of a sort of chemicals, or let us say a kind of they have particular kind of composition of different kinds of chemicals or those kind of things which are definitely not bad for but they are also sometimes not good for as far as the health of and skin of people go. And although they do a lot of research in terms of kind of the benefits which they can give and pass on to the customers, and definitely they go through very strict processes wherein they cater to the customers with lots of research and development associated with producing good products, and products which are not only not detrimental to the health of the customer, but beneficial for the customer, but still chemical usage is there. So, then there is a cosmetic and apparent usage just for the use basically. So, terms of cosmetics products are used just for the usage kind of. Then there is an integration of kind of non-integration of value chains kind of. So, wherein whole of the value chain is disintegrated form of when you have the reference to these cosmetic and consumer products, they especially go. So, conventional perspective of consumption. Contemporarily we go for brand awareness, and that brand awareness tells us that sometimes it says that it is good for one to be tall, dark and handsome, and sometimes that brand awareness says that you should be fair. So, and then whatever brand orientation we develop in due course of time, and we get attracted towards a particular kind of a product, and then we go for conventional consumption. Usage of comparative modes of awareness, that is red ocean perspective, you are advertising with a similar kind of an orientation. Non bona fide distribution chains, scattered and fragmented distribution chains and so on. So, what Patanjali did was they eliminated the usage of chemicals and cosmetic and apparent usage. They said that this is not for cosmetic and apparent usage of the consumer products, it is for the benefit of the health of the people. They eliminated disintegration in the value chains, and they eliminated conventional perspective of consumption. They reduced usage of comparative modes of awareness, wherein they sort of, although they have tend to move towards that a bit, but they reduced that sort of. They focused upon the quality and advantage of the products they have in their constitution, or the products are consisted of. Then they eliminated non bona fide distribution chains kind of. They raised integrated value chain based on belief kind of. The belief which talks of natural products, which talks of benefit of the customers, and they created a context to trust, faith, benefits, holistic market orientation, market development and co-creation, and integration of health and prosperity. So, this is where an important perspective evolved around Patanjali, and as we have seen that it has become a rage as far as development of market and addressing non-customers and going for uncontested market space and so on. So, that has become an important kind of an organization in which has written a particular kind of a history in the consumer market landscape as far as India within a very short span of time, and it is a very apt example of as far as Blue Ocean framework goes. So, that is where the Patanjali example rests. I would end this discussion with an apt example of my own Department of Management Studies at IIT Roorkee, which I look at with the strategy canvas frame of Blue Ocean strategy. 2008 I am not going into the entire history of this department, but 2008 this department had few students who were taking up PhD as the few research scholars, 10 or 11 in numbers, one batch of 60 students of MBA, 16 first year, 16 second year, and 7 faculty members all in all, and many visiting faculty members coming to teach the students. The department, with reference to being a B school or full-fledged B school, did not at all exist on the landscape of as far as B school scenario in India goes. What is to be done? If you go by a Red Ocean framework, then you have to compete in the existing market space, and then B schools which have been existing for n number of years and who have a cumulative acumen for a very long time, you just can't beat them. And the student also look at you with a particular kind of a categorization, industry and future employers of your students, where your student as as a product goes and serves there. They also look at you with a particular kind of a categorization and so on. So you have different kinds of problems associated with, if you look at this scenario with a Red Ocean perspective. Now if you look at the scenario with a Blue Ocean perspective, which department incidentally tried to do and then further propelled it strategically, you see that is how the scenario was, that offering level is there, and top management institutions and other similar management institutions with a perspective of a B school shown by red dots and red lines was there. There was an element of price, infrastructure, physical knowledge resources, books and material, and then lots of focus on managerial acumen, which was precisely developed within a certain framework, and lots of focus on placements, which still is the call of this industry. And then non-futuristic subjects, contemporary subjects, which generally were felt mandatory for being taught in B schools generally, and which were being taken from other countries who definitely had relevance to the context of the subjects they were offering, but many of the subjects were largely being taken randomly from whatever was being offered abroad, the methodological and pedagogical framework which was being offered there, because compulsorily the content was being borrowed from the other countries. So, and then there was a context to fun and humor based learning, kind of how we can infuse fun and humor for as far as learning management goes. Then there was an innovation focused learning also, infusing concurrent thought and concurrent industrial acumen and inputs as far as management acumen goes. Then there was other elements to it as faculty participation and so on. Now what we somehow did was that we moderately eliminated, as far as going for a full-fledged separate B school based infrastructure goes. Because we are a part of a very big and established institution, so we utilize the infrastructure of IIT aptly, which was required. We eliminated physical knowledge and resources and books and material, because IIT has that at a very large level, and we are on national knowledge network which can be utilized by our students from wherever they are. The whole of the resource is available to them. Then we sort of eliminated the zeal for focusing everything in terms of placements kind of. We said that placement definitely can be a culmination of whatever you do, and everyone has to be employed someday, but we would not be focusing on placements for as far as delivering the education goes. And then we eliminated non-futuristic subjects. we continuously deliberated upon the existing subjects, and then we tried to come up with changes in the course structure and syllabus continuously many a times and very frequently kind of. Then we reduced fun and humor based learning and innovation focused learning. We said that unilateral innovation, wherein if it is not collated with the requirement of the existing world and the future which this world should have, won't do good. So we slightly reduced and rationalized that, and fun and humor definitely was rationalized because it was consuming lots of time. And then we raised faculty participation and the level of faculty participation exists in B schools kind of, and faculty acumen also was raised because faculty started taking up the highest levels of researches they could reach to, and I am very pleased to feel pleased to share with you that National Institutional Ranking Framework last year ranked Department of Management Studies IIT Roorkee second in terms of management researches in this country. The team of 15 faculty members has produced an output in terms of scholars as well as research acumen as well as publications in terms of papers and books, which is higher than best of the B schools in the country, and even cumulatively in totality also. So that kind of faculty participation in research and culmination of that research towards the benefit of the students, that was raised and that worked wonderfully for us. And then we talk of creating a few things. For example, relation with the traditional knowledge that was infused by many of the faculty members, and that traditional knowledge got culminated into the demonstration in terms of our delivery of our courses. Environmental understanding, market development and co-creation perspective was introduced as far as whole of the delivery of courses go, and then leading the world with the perspective of serving the society was also infused, and everyone sort of focused on that kind of a thing, and whole lot of a culture got developed in due course of time, wherein students, they tend to believe that this is how they should be looking or foreseeing their roles in times to come. So that is how Department of Management Studies from 2008, and now we are standing in 2018. By 2017, last year, according to the rankings and ratings given to us by authentic agencies or and especially Government of India, Ministry of Human Resource Development, National Institutional Ranking Framework, we are now considered amongst the best B schools in the country, and also in research acumen we are lauded with ratings higher than many of the institutions. So that is where things are, and I rest the discussion here. There can be a sort of elaboration on several other aspects which remain undiscussed, but definitely there is a paucity of time, and there is a limit to what kind of how much we can digress, or let us say how much we can elaborate in due course of time. Thank you.